Hey, welcome back. I am going to be moving Top End Devs, which is where all the podcasts, all your favorite podcasts are here. We're going to move it over to Linode. So I'm going to go ahead and set things up here. I'm going to log in. All right, so you can see I've got some other stuff running here. We're going to go ahead and create Linode. We're going to use Ubuntu. I always go with the LTS, those long-term supported versions. We will put it in, I don't know, let's put it in Dallas. Now, I am going to put it on an 8 gigabyte server. Call it topenddevs.com. Add it to the Top End Devs tag. I can add a password that I can remember. Also add my SSH key. I don't need any of that. I do want backups. So we'll create the Linode. It doesn't like my password. So I can have one password generate one for me, but the problem is that sometimes I have to type in the root password. So it needs to be something I can remember. So that's a little longer. Still doesn't like it. All right. All right. So it generated the password. We're going to save it as we'll just call it that. Root. It's trying to attach it to cloud.linode.com or whatever. All right. So that says that's a good, strong password. So we're going to wait for it to provision, and then we'll log into it and start setting it up. All right, it is running. So we want to copy this line right here. We'll open up an iTerm window. I've got it on the other screen. Here we go. I am going to just make this nice and big. And I'm going to be running this on Nginx and Passenger is the way that I'm going to do it. So let's go ahead and SSH in. Yes. Remember this computer. All right. So we need to install Ruby. And I am just going to steal. So I always have to get the packages that I need. I'm just pulling it off of this Go Rails Ubuntu setup. I'm going to follow some of this, but I don't follow all of it. I was a sysadmin in a past life, and so I have ways that I like things set up. But for the first part, let me make the text a little bigger for you. All right, so we have to run the updates. All right, so it says there's a new kernel available, which means that it's going to keep prompting me if I don't reboot it. So I'm just going to reboot it right now. And then we'll wait for it to come back up. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So now that it's back, we're going to SSH in again. We need a user called deploy. Give it a password I can remember, because I am going to need to do some sudo work on it. So add user, deploy, sudo. That adds it to the sudo group, so you can run sudo commands. And then we need to copy the SSH folder / authorized keys. Actually, we just copy the folder to the deploy home folder. But then that SSH folder is going to be owned by root. So we're going to change the owner of the deploy folder to deploy. And then we should be good to go. So the next thing we need to do is install Ruby. And there are a few dependencies here that we're going to need. Oh, and I just ran the update. I didn't actually install any of the dependencies, but we're going to get them one at a time. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get Node.js. This command right here is the command to install Node.js, and it just gets the latest long-term supported version of Node, which is awesome. And if you're not familiar with curl and with the command line, if you're newer, I guess, curl -sl, it actually just downloads the this script, and then the pipe sends the output from this to bash. So this just tells it to run the command as bash. And it has the sudo line in here just because I'm pulling it from a resource where it expects you to run all this stuff as deploy. So what we actually want to do is sudo su deploy. All right, so now we're running stuff as deploy, but we are part of the sudo group, so we can run sudo commands. All right, we're also going to do yarn. And yarn has a very similar thing, except you have to install a GPG key, which is a signature that verifies that you can trust the server for yarn. And we're going to copy, and it's giving us a warning because it wants to use something else to manage the GPG keys. I've tried that on other servers, and I haven't been able to figure out how to make that work. So we're just going to do that. And then this line, this echo deb blah, 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 it just adds the yarn package repository to our package manager so that we can install yarn. Now, one other thing that we're going to do is we're going to need to get Redis. Now, it is complaining that it cannot find this Chris Lee server. So I'm actually going to back that change out. So we'll just go to, it's actually this right here. Because you can see the IP address isn't found, so it's not happy about it. So we'll just take it right back out. You just delete the file and it takes it out of the list. So then if you do an apt update again, it'll be gone. So yeah, then I don't have to fight it. The default Ubuntu package manager repositories actually has a Redis server in it. I just don't think it's the latest and greatest version. But that's fine. It'll be fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install all the dependencies for Ruby. This is the big long line that I copy. Effectively what we're doing is we're installing git, curl, zlibg, I don't know what all these are. Build Essential gives you all the build tools like make, which you need to build it. libssl, libreadline, libyaml, libsqlite, right? libxml. So these are all requirements for Ruby and Rails. And then we're going to install Ruby. I always go look and see what the latest Ruby version is. So it is 3.2.1, which is good to know. So anyway, we're going to install rbenv. And again, you know, I have this copied over on the other screen just because I can never remember all the commands to put this stuff in. But effectively what we're doing here is we've installed rbenv. It just put it into the deploy users home folder. That actually adds the rbenv stuff to the bash rc, which gets loaded when we start bash. This does the rbenv setup so that it'll do the stuff we need. We're also going to install Ruby build so that it will actually automatically use the Ruby version we want it to. And then we're going to modify our path so that we get the right version of Ruby. And finally, we're going to grab these rbenv vars. I'm not sure exactly what's in there, but that's just part of the setup process that I've figured out here. So now we call this execute shell. All that does is it just calls bash and tells it to reload so that all this stuff that we put into our bash rc gets run. And that way it can find rbenv and it can figure out what versions of Ruby we're running. So we're going to rbenv install Ruby. Oh, right. 3.2.1. That's what we wanted. So it'll grab it and it's going to install. This is going to take a minute, so I'm going to use the magic of editing and we're going to speed this sucker up. All right, so now that it's installed, that took like 5 minutes, we're actually going to run this right here. And what that does is it sets rbenv, kind of the default version of Ruby that it runs, as 3.2.1, which is the latest version. So now we can just double check that it runs the right version. There we go. So now we're going to install bundler. Wants us to update Ruby gems. No problem. Now that we've got Ruby gems installed and updated and all that good stuff, let's go ahead and install Passenger and Nginx. So in order to do that, the first thing that we want to do is we need to install, oh, it's installing the stupid documentation. All right, so I just killed it because I don't want to wait. So we need to basically pull in this key and authenticate the passenger server so that we can install Fusion Passenger. So then we're going to copy this list of passenger packages into apt so that it can actually find passenger. So then we just grab this guy, we do an apt update, and then I'm just going to copy this line too. But effectively what we're doing is we're just installing Nginx extras and HTTP passenger. That gives us pretty much everything else we need. And then again, these are just instructions that I found that help you set up passenger. Essentially what this does is this is command line syntax for if the file does not exist, this file right here, etc nginx modules enabled 50 HTTP mod passenger, right? Then it tells it to create a symbolic link to the passenger setup. that's in user share Nginx, okay, which is where that thing got installed. So then we're just going to make sure that everything is installed and good to go, and it is. So then we need to edit our passenger setup. My editor of choice is Emacs. You can blame David Brady for that. So we're going to install Emacs, and then I will actually jump in and edit the passenger setup file really quickly. So it's in Etsy Nginx conf d mod passenger. And what we're looking to do is this right here. We don't want the user bin free passenger. What we want is the Ruby shim, right? So rbn shims Ruby. And essentially what this is it points it to the symbolic link that rbn is providing that points it back to Ruby 3.2.1. But if we ever do change the global setting to 3.2.2, so they come out with 3.2.2, right? Then we just tell it to globally use 3.2.2, and it will actually, we don't have to come in and update this again, which is what we want. So let's restart Nginx. And then we're looking pretty good. So now what we need to do is we need to actually set up our application. And that's going to be top-end devs. So you'll also recognize that I'm going to set up top-end devs, and then I'm going to set up the admin for top-end devs. So the first thing we need to do is actually remove the default. And then we are going to I don't know if I want a .conf on the end. You can call it whatever you want. So anyway, and then I've just got this basic setup here. Here's the rub is we don't have anything deployed here yet. We're going to deploy it here in a minute, though. So if you ever have to change the size of a file that you can upload, so let's say you want to upload gigabyte files, don't ask me why you would do that, but let's say you do, you can just change it right here. But we're going to leave this for right now. And then we're going to reload. Oh, I need to symlink it, right? I need to enable the site. Let's see, Nginx sites available top-end devs to Etsy Nginx sites enabled top-end devs. And by doing that, now we need to reload again. By doing that, what it does is it enables the site that you have in sites available. And the reason they have the two folders is so that you can turn sites on and off just by removing the symlink. So far so good. Reloaded. So now we need to create our database. So these are the packages we need for the database. And the libpq-dev that was in there, that's the library you have to install for the pggem in Rails to work. So then we're going to sudo su postgres. And then we're going to create a user. Deploy, and we're going to give it a password. Again, something that I can remember. And then we're gonna, oh, it wants me to type it again. Then we're gonna create the database. -o, deploy, right? So the owner is deploy. That's going to be top-end devs. Right? I think that's how I have this set up in the database YAML. Default. The default does not tell it what the database name is. Oh yeah, database name comes out of the environment variable. We'll just put it like that. That way, if I haven't specified it, push that up. It'll get picked up when we deploy. All right, so we'll call it top-end devs. And then we're done with that. So now we have a database. We have Nginx set up. So now we just need to deploy the code. So I need to get the IP address. And I always get it off of using the ifconfig utility, but I know that I can also just yank it out of Linode or off the command line once I exit back out of here, but I'm just going to copy it that way. And we will come back over here to our, it's not the cap file. Capistrano is already set up. Okay, I've already done that work. Just to give you some ideas, right, you have bundler, Rails, passenger, RBM. Right, so that uses all of the stuff that we have. I've already set it up to use Ruby 3.2.1, so we're good to go. So now if we jump over to, no, it's not deploy, it's production. I'm going to just change this and this. In fact, I can probably just do this. So the way I have it set up currently, the worker runs on its own server. But now I don't see any reason not to just run it on the same server, so I'm just going to do that. I realize they might compete for resources, but if that happens, I can scale it horizontally. I can just upgrade the server and do what I need to do. Eventually, I'd like to move it all over to Docker, and then, you know, maybe set it up on a Kubernetes cluster so that, you know, I can spin it out as many times as I want, but I'm not really to that point yet. I don't get enough traffic to warrant that. So anyway, we're pretty much there. So I'm gonna run it. Oh, I'm not in the folder. So we'll do a cat production deploy. Now I fully expect it to complain about something. So try to connect to GitHub, right? And it says permission denied public key, and that's because the deploy user doesn't have a private or a public key in GitHub. So we're going to jump on there real quick. SSH-keygen is the command. We want an RSA key. That's good. I don't want to passphrase on it because I don't want to have to authenticate it every time I use it. So we'll open the public key. And then we will open GitHub. Top-end devs. All right. That's new. I'll check that later. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to deploy keys. This is going to be Linode - top-end devs. No, it doesn't need write access. Verify the code on my phone. There we go, GitHub. It's all right. So yeah, got that added. So now we can run it again. Honestly, usually the deployments like this, it is literally just a trial and error on fixing stuff that comes up because I never remember to do everything. Oh. So I'm sure I missed stuff. I think I'm missing a config, right? Yeah, I'm missing the config. So I'm actually just going to copy it from the other server that everything's running on right now. Apps, top-end devs, shared.env. I'm just going to copy it. The downloads folder. And then copy it back up. So this is where I'm holding all the config is in that .env file. I'm using .env with my application. I know that's not the most secure way to do it. That's another reason why I'd like to move to Docker is because I can put that into some kind of cluster config or secrets management system and have it work that way. But 139.144.41.75 apps, top-end devs, shared.env. Now, I don't know if it has the correct database info in there, so that might be the next thing that it blows up on. We'll just have to see. All right, so it blew up trying to build the assets. Let's see. Missing secret key base for production environment. And that's because bin Rails credentials. Okay. So it doesn't have the Rails master key. That's what it's missing now. So Let me just open another tab. Let's just SSH in. Just looking here. So Rails secret key is what we're looking for, and it's not there. So we need to add it. So the thing that we can do here is we can copy it up. It's not there either. We do have it in here. So this is on the local host, Rails master key. It's right there. So we copied that line. And now we've got it in there. So now coming back over here, we're going to deploy again. And it looks like that worked. All right, so now it's given us a different error. And the thing is like some of this stuff is just, hey, you didn't have the right thing installed on the right deal. And this is a little less familiar to me just because I mostly do Rails. All right, so let's pop over here. Oh, wrong machine. All right, so now I'm curious because I don't know if it overwrote the other Node 18 installer. So it says Node 16 here. It does not say anything else. So sudo apt remove node.js. And there we go. Now we're getting Node 16. So now what we need to do is, I wonder if yarn will still work or not. Looks good. All right, so let's give this one more shot. Oh, whoops. Cap production deploy. Because, yeah, it looks like it's something that was broken in Node 17 and never just quite got fixed up. So This is where it blew up before. It's taking a little longer than it did before. So there we go. All right, so now it's going to try and migrate. So we'll see if it cheerfully and happily migrates. I think we're going to run into an issue here too. And that is that our database is set up for this. So database user equals deploy. Because it's going to try and migrate the database in DigitalOcean. So I'm going to stop it and run it again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it ran all the migrations. It updated whenever cron tab. So we are good to go. So now, if we browse over to the server, we get an internal server error. So we're going to just watch it here, watch it run for a second. So now we can go back to this and we can reload it. I think it's going to show up actually in the error log. Nope, it's sending it back. Okay. So it says permission denied. So the trick here is right there. So see where it says it's running as www data. Now somebody's probably a purist and is saying you should be using systemctl in order to restart Nginx. I realize that, but I've been doing this so long that it's just natural to do the other deal. All right, so now it's given us a 404 not found. Oh, yep. Top and dens. I am going to clean it up, but I'm going to leave this error in just in case y'all run into something similar. So what we need to do is xc nginx sites and the available top end devs. I see the issue. See, this is home deploy apps, and this is home deploy top-end devs. So that's the issue. That's where the problem is now. All right, so this is all working great, but you can see that it doesn't have any podcasts or anything in it, and the images and stuff aren't here. So I'm going to use rclone here to copy the files from my old cloud storage to my new cloud storage, okay? Because I have top-end devs, like I said, running over on DigitalOcean, and I need to run it on, or I need all the files over on Linode so that I can get things going. So let's just go ahead and install rclone. All right. So we're going to go to DigitalOcean. We're going to open space keys, and you can see that has like a top-end devs dev and a top-end devs prod. So we're going to generate a new key. This is transfer to Linode. And I'm just going to delete this when I'm done with it, okay? All right, so we've got the spaces key. We've got the client ID and the secret, and what we want to do is, in order to configure DigitalOcean, what I figured out that you have to do is, first of all, you have to know where your what region you're in on DigitalOcean. So we're going to open the spaces. Looks like it's NYC3. So we're actually going to just open this and go emacs.config, because I'm already in my home directory, rclone.conf. And we're going to create one called DigitalOcean. And then I'm just going to copy this. This is right out of the examples for that DigitalOcean gives you, right? So it's S3, DigitalOcean. So we just need the spaces key and spaces secret, which we can get right here. So that's the key. I think I have that configured so that it'll, let me just kill those. There we go. Key. Secret. And then it was in NYC3. All right, so now that we've got that set up, we need to do the same thing, except we're going to do it with Linode. And so let me jump on Linode real quick. All right, so you can see here we have top-end devs here as a bucket. What we need is we need an access key. And you can see we've got some keys here. We're going to create a new access key. This is going to be top-end devs migration. I am going to delete this key as soon as we are done. We're going to create the access key. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy all this. And we are going to rename it all Linode. And then right here is where we have to know where all of the stuff is held, right? Now, my region on the Linode bucket is US Southeast. I can't remember exactly what it is. Let's go ahead and set the access key first. Cut that out, put that in. And then we'll get this one. And then we need that endpoint. I've saved my secret key because it won't show it to you again. And then go to the buckets, and you can see here that top-end devs is ussoutheast.linodeobjects.com. So we will come back and paste that in, remove the extra dot, and we will close that up. Now, what we want to do is we want to copy our clone, copy DigitalOcean top-end devs to Linode top-end devs. S3 provider Linode not known. Please set correctly. So it doesn't know what Linode is. So let me just double check that real quick. Our clone Linode. All right, so we've got this. It says right here, select your cloud storage service as any other S3 compatible provider. So we will go ahead and do that. We'll just say that it's DigitalOcean too. Shouldn't matter. And I wish there was some kind of progress bar. But what I think we'll do is we'll jump over here and we'll have a look at our buckets. And you can see top-end devs now has 100 items in it. Now it has 368. So it is running. So if we look here real quick, we can see that the space has 2243 items and is 2 gigs. And if we look over here in the buckets, 2243 items and is 1.95 gigs, which I'm assuming means that I copied everything over and DigitalOcean's just rounding up. And we can also see here that our clone finished running. So we are good to go there. All right, so now that we're on the server and I've cleared the screen, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a database dump so that we can copy the data off of top-end devs and put it over on our new setup. So what I need to do, and I've copied the URL already for the DigitalOcean setup. In fact, let me just so we've got the connection string here. I'm just going to copy it. Boom. And then we just do a pg dump. -d, give it the URL, tell it what file we want it in, topenddevs.pgsql. And wait. All right, so then we can see that it's there. So we're going to back out of here. Deploy devs.com. I wonder if we can actually do that. Deploy at what's the IP address over here? I think I saw it, yeah, right there, host. When I was a systems administrator at Brigham Young University, we always were copying files either to our machine or from our machine. It never occurred to me to actually copy it from one machine to the other and just not have a middleman. So that's kind of slick. I should have done that with the .env file because I need to go delete that because I don't want those secrets sitting on my dev machine. Now, last time I installed PostgreSQL on the machine because I thought I wanted to run it locally, but what I'm decided to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and run a database cluster on their managed databases. It just takes a lot of maintenance load off of worrying about what version I have and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a database cluster. Cluster's name is going to be Top-End Devs. We're looking at PostgreSQL. We'll just use the latest version. I think I have Postgres 13 on my machine, so we'll see if that causes an issue. The server is in US Southeast, so I will be putting the database in US Southeast. Now it looks like it just runs it as a machine, as a service. So I'll just use a dedicated 4 gig and see how far that gets me. I do not need 3 nodes. I'm just going to run 1 node. And then access control, I need the URL for my Linode, so we'll open this in a new tab. We're going to run it on Top-End Devs. That's the IP address right there. So if we come over here, drop that in, it should be accessible. I could also go to like whatismyip.com and see what happens as far as putting my own local IP address in here, because I found that the IP addresses are pretty static. It is DHCP, so it is a dynamic IP address assignment on Xfinity, but I find that they don't change those very often, so I could probably get away with just adding my own home IP address if I ever needed to access the database directly from home, but I don't need it. So while we're doing this, I'm going to get back on the server and I'm going to uninstall the Postgres server because I don't need it. I just need the access libraries. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a new clone of the database off of topenddevs.com's server on DigitalOcean and copy it over. And the reason for that is because my team has released episodes since we last recorded. So we'll jump over here, databases. This is what's running this over here. Database connection string. We're going to copy this. We'll just blur out the password. And then I will and then I think I actually have the PG dump call right here, so I'm just going to call it again. We'll just call this top-end devs-2. All right. So you can see here that we're just going to copy, copying the wrong file. Call this -2. Call this -2. While it's doing that, we will also just jump on the server and we'll make sure that we can remove PostgreSQL. So let's see. We need the IP address. Copy. Still provisioning. It said it could take 15 to 20 minutes, so we'll see how that goes. And then what we're going to do is we are going to sudo apt remove PostgreSQL. I think it's just PostgreSQL and PostgreSQL contrib. And then I know we already installed the libpq package, which is what we need for it to access from Rails, access the PostgreSQL database. So the other thing that we need to install, and I don't know if it's on here or not, is the PostgreSQL client. And the reason that we need that is so that we can use the pg restore command to install this when we're done. So, all right, so we got this database cluster going here. Great. So we've authorized that IP address. So now what we want is we want a connection URL. I guess I could just put in the username, password, host, port, etc. So we are on the server here. We've got top-end devs-2 PG SQL, which is great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a PG restore -d Postgres and then we're going to have to get the username, password, oh, here we go, copy. At host name, looks like it's on 5432. 432 slash, and then the name of the database, which is top-end devs. When we try and restore, you can see we're getting this error, this PG restore error. The internet says that we need to do a PG dump with the -FC flags. So PG dump -FC -D. We'll call it .dump. All right. We'll go ahead and upload this file. All right, so now that we've got that done, we're going to do this again using our newly uploaded .dump. And now we're getting an error that says that the database does not exist. So that's a good sign, though. Because what we can do now is we can do let's go to shared.env. Oh, we don't have that over there. So we're going to have to copy that, scp deploy. In fact, let's just app top end devs shared.env. It's not where it's stored. Apps, not app. All right, so now it's copied the file over. All right, so now we've got this database URL. Hang on. Copy it. Apps, top end devs, current. We're going to do the Rails env production, Rails DB create. Forgot bundle exec Rails DB create. It is missing the bin Rails credentials. Oh, it's missing a secret key base. Do I not have that in the .env file? Nope. Okay, it created the database. So now should be able to restore it. Oh. So now it's trying to create the owner as top-end devs, but the user top-end devs doesn't exist. But I'm assuming that it's able to import all of the data. All right, so it ignored the permissions errors, but it should all be good to go. All right, so it looks like it's loading. All right, so now that we've got everything moved over, we got the data moved over, we've got all the files moved over, we've got everything set up to deploy. Now what we need to do is we need to point the domain at the new server. So we're going to do that. We're going to set up an SSL certificate with Let's Encrypt, and then we'll move through from there and deploy the admin application. We're going to come in here. We're going to edit top-end devs. Hit the DNS. So that's our main record right there. We're going to move it. So let's jump on Linodes. We just need this IP address. And then we're going to come back over here. Emacs, Etsy, Nginx, sites available or enabled, top-end devs. And we're going to hit this right here. And the reason is because we're going to use the Let's Encrypt certbot, and it looks for that name in that file. So let's install certbot. So sudo snap install core. Oops. Need to do that semicolon, but that's fine. Sudo snap refresh core. I don't remember if I installed certbot on here, so it's not installed. Okay. Sudo snap install classic certbot. All right, let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. I didn't. Firewall on. It's off. I'm going to go ahead and just turn on the firewall anyway. Oh, delete allow. All right, the rule's not there anyway. Let's also make sure. Oh. That could have been ugly. Definitely want to allow SSH. All right. So now let's go ahead and run the certbot. So certbot -nginx -d topenddevs.com. Agree. Sure, you guys email me anyway. So, deploying the certificate. So now I'm not sure. This has a TTL of 15 minutes. I don't know if we'll have moved over or not. It doesn't look like it. All right, so what we're going to do, though, is we're going to go ahead and deploy the admin now. The admin is a lot easier just because we've already done a lot of the same stuff with top-end devs. The difference is that so the admin is a separate Rails app, but it connects to the same database and the same bucket for object storage. So the config is basically the same. Eventually, I want to merge the two apps. I built two apps, and what I found is that I am now creating two copies of every model, and it's just a pain in the butt to keep them straight because one will validate something, and then I have to go copy it over to the other. And it'd be nice if they were just using the same set of models, and then we could just, I could just use them both ways. So anyway, that's not the way that it works right now. You can see here that there's some work in progress going on here with one of the forms. That's all good. Honestly, production, this is the deployment. I have them running on separate servers on DigitalOcean, but I'm going to actually run it in the same server here. And if we look at config, it's going to drop it in apps, top-end devs admin. So it should be fine. I'm probably going to have to set up a deploy key for this. In fact, grab the public key here real quick. And jump on GitHub. Preemptively add it. Top-end devs admin. And we are going to go to settings, deploy keys, Linode, not allowing write access, authorization code, that's on my phone. Key is already in use. All right, well, looks like this is the solution. So real quick, I got this error trying to create the deploy key. It says it's already in use. Doesn't like that. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to follow the directions in this article right here. Managing multiple GitHub deploy keys. What they're saying makes sense. So we're just going to copy this. We'll use it to create another RSA SSH key. We're going to call it TED admin RSA top and devs deploy. No passphrase. And we'll copy that SSH public key so that we can put it into GitHub. All right, so we'll jump over here, tell it we have a new deploy key for it. Linode. I'm I'm just going to see if it'll work, if it'll be smart enough to figure out that the one key doesn't work. Oh, right. So I need to copy the deploy because I had everything set up with RVM on the other system. And now I'm using RBenv and all of the goodies on this system. So let me just open the other app here. So the cap file, see, says use an RBenv. And I updated it, and I didn't realize that the two deployments were now different. So we'll do that, and then let me just make this bigger. The gem file. This needs to be 321. Otherwise, it'll complain at me. Copy all this. And then deploy RB. It's going to be different too. Got a whole bunch of Puma stuff in here too that I don't need anymore. I'll clean that up in a minute. Don't need the config master key because that's in the secret, the .n file. I think we're good to go here. I think I have them both installed, so there we go. It's probably going to complain about the bundler version just because they're not the same between the two. We'll see if it matters. All right, so it's having trouble installing the PG gem. So one thing that I've run into over and over again installing the PG or Postgres gem is that it doesn't know where the Postgres config and other executables live. And so if I can give it that path, then a lot of times it'll fix it. So I'm going to try and do that first so to see if that actually solves my problem. So I'm going to double check and make sure that I know where those executables are. And then we'll go ahead and run the pg gem install command and make sure that it has that path, the proper path, so that it can install it. 13. All right. Now that we know that the PG gem will install properly, we're going to do a bundle install and make sure that it pulls in the rest of the gems that we need and that it grabs the right PG version. And then we'll move through from there and see what else we run into as we deploy this application. Shouldn't be doing that. Let's look at this here. So that's PG 123, and this one is PG 145. So let's do that. Because we know it worked on the other system. There we go. All right, so now we're going to do cat production deploy. Could not read from a remote directory, so it doesn't like the... It's the SSH key that's the problem. We're going to edit on the server. SSH config, like it showed in that article. Right here. No, right here. I'm just going to copy this. And what this SSH key config does is where you see host, you can SSH user at and then what's at host, and it'll fill in the host name and use the identity file or the RSA key that's specified there. So what effectively we're going to do is we're just going to do SSH to GitHub at, or yeah, git at GitHub-admin or something like that, and then we'll tell it the RSA key for the deploy key, and then it should be able to connect to it with the right key for the right repo and pull it down. And then what we'll do is we'll actually come back over here and deploy. We're going to change this to GitHub admin. This should work. But I need to deploy it in order to make it work. Oh, no, I don't. I do need to deploy that because it has the Postgres changes in it and the Ruby version changes in it. All right. Run that again. Okay, top-end devs admin shared.env doesn't exist. Well, that's easy enough to fix because we already have one over here. Apps, top-end devs shared.env, apps, top-end devs admin shared. All right, yeah. See, so it says the Ruby version is 3.2.1. Your gem file specified 2.7.4. I thought I pushed in the changes. Oh, I never pushed the change in. That's why it's complaining. Okay. All right, so now what are we hung up on? It's on the assets compilation. All right, so what I'm curious about is, I think I have Webpacker over here too. Gem file. Yeah, Webpacker 543. So we're going to upgrade that. I'm going to make the wild assumption that it still works. Oh, I need to commit it and upgrade Webpacker. Commit. All right, so now we don't have a passenger running in that location. That's what that error says. So let's go ahead and drop over here for a minute. And now, since the website configuration should be more or less the same, I'm just going to copy the top-end devs Nginx configuration and modify it so that it'll work for top-end devs admin. Password for deploy. So we'll go ahead and change the server name or host name. That's what I've been calling it, backoffice dot. And we'll change the path. Let's see, anything else we need here? Okay, this is all certbot stuff. So I need that gone because I need to do the same thing with the certificate. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to sudo sites enabled. So as we said before, if you create a symlink in sites enabled to something in sites available, then it will enable that website so that when you hit the server, it'll load it up. You can do an SF on LN and force it to make it, but I don't want it to do anything funky, right? I want it to work the way I expect. And then Nginx is happy with that. So now we're going to go ahead and run the certbot command again, update hover again. And what we're going to edit is right here, back office. backoffice.topenddevs.com. All right, so it looks like that is all set up and hunky-dory. So now if we open up back office, so it looks like it ran into a problem. It's definitely hitting Fusion Passenger. All right, so all right, cannot check out session because a spawning error occurred. Cannot load such file net SMTP. All right, interesting. So I'm not explicitly including it, but it looks like it wants me to do this. So now that we've included the net SMTP gem, we'll go ahead and run bundle install again, and then we'll commit the gem file and gem file lock, and then we'll see what happens from there. Net SMP. Cat production deploy. Let me scroll down here. Oh, net FTP. All right. So at least it's something different. Just make sure it's not in here. It's not. Okay, that's changed. Don't require net FTP off the bat. I am using net FTP in this app. I don't think it uses it on the other. And to be honest, I don't actually need net FTP anymore. I need to go clean up the code. All right, let's see. NetPop. I don't think I'm using NetPop, but okay. I mean, I could just upgrade this app to Rails 7, but I don't know what kind of work that would do. What kind of work that would mean, and to be honest, I mean, that would just be a different recording altogether, so commit. There we go. Push it up. Cat production deploy. Still some problem. I'm assuming. Net IMAP. All right. All right. Looks like it's working. So we'll go ahead and sign in. So I can go and I can just double check and change the config for auth 0 and make it allow me in. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera, but it got deployed. And so now I can go in and I can make whatever adjustments I need to in order to make sure that those logos and things are showing up. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out. But yeah, we got a deployed app. We got a deployed app on topenddevs.com as well. Topenddevs.com. You can see it's loading up the one without the images here. Looks like everything's there, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But yeah, we got everything moved over. This demonstrates that the block storage all got moved and that the database got moved as well, because the database contains all the references to all of this stuff. So yeah, happy deployment. Yeah, just a little bit of cleanup, and then we will be good to go. All right, so I showed you that everything got deployed except for that one little thing where those images weren't showing up. And it turns out that I am using the Rails settings cached gem in order to manage the settings, and Rails caches those when it looks them up. And so unless you change them in the same app that you're using them in, they don't update because they are cached, and so you're waiting for the cache to expire. So what you wind up having to do, or what I wound up having to do in order to make those show up, is I had to come into where the cached stuff is. Now, when it deploys it symlinks the current directory under top-end devs to shared for the temp and PIDs and a handful of other folders, logs. That's just how Capistrano works great. So what you have to do is you actually have to find the file that is the Rails settings cached cache, and you have to delete it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a find. And dot is the location you're looking in. We're going to do iname. And iname is just saying the name of the file, case insensitive, find that file. And then we're going to do settings like that, okay? And you can see that it's right there. It's in /983/850, Rails settings cached. And if you just delete it, right? 983/850 Rails settings cached. You just remove the file. Rails will regenerate that cache on its own the next time somebody hits it. In fact, I bet, see, it's already back. And the reason is because somebody's already hit the website, and so it's already come back. And so then what we can do is we can go back. I'm going to reload the page, bring it back up, and you'll see that it now has the images on it. All right?